After a lifetime of being the forgotten twin in a family obsessed with the golden child, I finally left. Now they want me back. Growing up, I never really felt like I belonged in my family. I have a twin sister, Jenny. We're not identical, and trust me, you'd never guess we're related just by looking at us. She's like, I don't know, one of those girls you see on Instagram, always looking perfect, blonde, tall, pretty much the whole package. Meanwhile, I'm 5'2" with brown hair and look more like the before picture in those makeover shows. It's not like I'm fishing for compliments or anything. It's just the reality I grew up with. People always saw her first, and that includes my parents. From the time we were little, it was pretty obvious who the star of the family was. Jenny was always front and center in every photo, every family video, and every memory we seemed to make. I was just there. I guess I kind of got used to it, but it hurt. I think the worst part was that no one even seemed to notice. Not my parents, not my friends, no one. I remember one birthday, I think we were turning 12, and my parents threw this big party for both of us, but it didn't really feel like my party at all. They spent so much time getting Jenny the perfect dress, making sure her hair was done, and talking about how beautiful she looked. Me? They gave me a gift card to Target, and said I could pick out something for myself if I wanted. That was kind of the norm for me, always getting the leftovers. Jenny, on the other hand, was the kind of person people just wanted to be around. She could walk into a room, and instantly everyone would gravitate toward her. It wasn't that I hated her for it, well, maybe a little. But what really got to me was how our parents fed into it. They loved how much attention she got, how she always seemed to be the center of everything, and I think they started seeing me as more of a background character in my own life. I was always more on the quiet side. I didn't mind reading a book or just hanging out by myself, but even when I did try to get some attention, it felt like I was always being compared to Jenny. If she was wearing a new outfit, my mom would say something like, "Doesn't Jenny look amazing in that? Maybe you should try dressing like her." Or when we'd go to family events, they'd gush over how she was growing up to be so beautiful and successful, and then glance at me like I was just tagging along for the ride. I think it was around middle school that I really started to notice how different things were for us. Jenny got all the support, whether it was for her cheerleading, friends, or whatever she wanted to do. Our parents were at every single one of her games, sitting front and center, cheering her on like she was about to win the Olympics. Meanwhile, I was on the track team, running my heart out at meets, and not once did they come to watch me. Not even once. I'll never forget this one time when I had a big race. I was so excited because I'd been training for weeks, and I really wanted to show them what I could do. I told them about it, made sure they knew when and where it was, and even asked if they could bring a camera to get some pictures. Well, the day came, and I looked into the stands before my race started, and guess what? They weren't there. Later I found out they were at one of Jenny's cheerleading practices. Not even a competition, a practice. That's when I realized how much they just didn't care. It wasn't just the attention either. The way they spent money on us made it even more obvious. If we were going shopping, Jenny would always get the expensive stuff. Designer clothes, new shoes, the works. I'd get the basics, whatever was left after they spent most of the budget on her. I remember asking my mom why I couldn't get the same things. And she literally told me, "Well, people know Jenny more, so she needs to look nicer." It was like they didn't even care how it made me feel. I was just there to fill space. Looking back, it's no wonder I felt like I didn't matter. I tried to ignore it for a long time, telling myself that maybe I was just overreacting or being too sensitive. But it wasn't just me. Everyone around us treated Jenny like she was the sun, and I was just some random planet circling around her. The worst part was that I started believing it. I thought maybe I wasn't worth as much, because I wasn't as pretty or popular. Maybe if I tried harder, they'd notice me. I started putting in extra effort at school, getting good grades, hoping they'd finally give me the same kind of attention they gave Jenny, but it didn't work even when I brought home straight A's. All I got was a pat on the back, while they were still gushing over how Jenny was voted most likely to succeed in her yearbook. I can't lie, it really messed with my head. I'd see other families where siblings were treated equally, and I couldn't help but wonder why mine wasn't like that. Why did I have to work so hard just to get a fraction of the attention she got without even trying? It got to a point where I just started pulling away. I'd spend more time in my room, avoiding family dinners or gatherings where I knew Jenny would be the center of attention. I didn't hate her, but I definitely resented the way things were. It's hard not to when you feel invisible next to someone who's shining so brightly. There's this one memory that still sticks with me. It was the summer before we started high school. My mom had taken us shopping for school clothes, and as usual, Jenny got this whole new wardrobe, brand names, all the latest trends. When it was my turn, I ended up with a couple of t-shirts and jeans from the clearance rack. I asked my mom why Jenny got so much more, and she just shrugged and said, "Well, you don't really care about clothes as much as Jenny does." That's when I knew for sure that nothing was ever going to change. Growing up in Jenny's shadow wasn't just about her being prettier or more popular. It was about how my parents constantly showed me, in a million little ways, that she mattered more. No matter what I did, I was always going to be second best. It wasn't just one thing that pushed me over the edge. It was like a bunch of little moments piling up until it became too much. I hit a breaking point when I turned 18, but let me walk you through how that actually happened. Growing up with Jenny was tough, but when we hit high school, it got way worse. By then, she had this huge friend group, and I was still the awkward, quiet one. I never really fit in, no matter how hard I tried. It was like everyone knew me as Jenny's sister, but no one cared to know me. I think my parents expected me to just blend into the background while Jenny shined, and honestly, I did for a while. I figured, why fight it? They weren't going to change, and neither was she. But by senior year, I was getting ready to leave. I'd been planning it for a while. I didn't tell anyone, not even my friends. I didn't want to risk my parents finding out before I was ready. I was working part-time at a local coffee shop, and I saved up every penny I could. It wasn't much, but it was enough to get me out. I knew I couldn't rely on my parents to help me out once I left, so I had to do it on my own. Anyway, the breaking point came on my 18th birthday. My parents decided to throw a joint party for me and Jenny, like they always did, but of course, it felt like the party was more for her than for me. They had invited all of her friends, most of whom barely knew I existed, and all the attention was on her again. I remember standing in the corner of our backyard, watching everyone fawn over Jenny in her new designer dress, taking selfies and laughing with her friends. Meanwhile, I was stuck in this old dress I had bought from the clearance rack at some department store. I looked down at the cake. Jenny's name was written first in big fancy letters, mine tucked away in the corner like an afterthought. I tried to stay positive. I mean, it was my birthday too, right? Maybe they had planned something special for me. But when it came time to open presents, the difference between how they treated us became impossible to ignore. Jenny went first, and of course, she was showered with gifts, clothes, makeup, a brand new purse from some designer brand I can't even pronounce. Then it was my turn. I didn't expect much, but what I got made my stomach drop. My parents handed me a $100 gift card to a bookstore. Don't get me wrong, I love books, but it was hard to ignore the fact that Jenny had just unwrapped a $1,000 gift card to her favorite boutique. They tried to justify it by saying, "Well, you like reading, so we thought this would be perfect for you." I nodded, said thanks, but inside, I was boiling. It wasn't about the gift card itself. It was about what it represented. I felt like they were telling me I wasn't worth the same, that I wasn't important enough to get more than $100 while Jenny got 10 times that. It was a slap in the face. After the party ended, I went up to my room and packed. I didn't want to waste any more time. I had been saving for months, and now that I was officially 18, nothing was stopping me. I didn't tell my parents that night. I just packed everything I owned into 2 suitcases and planned to leave first thing in the morning. The next day, I woke up early, hoping to leave before anyone else got up, but of course, nothing goes according to plan. As I was heading down the stairs, my dad caught me. "Where are you going with all that?" he asked, eyeing the suitcases. I froze for a second, then took a deep breath. "I'm leaving. I can't stay here anymore." My dad's face shifted from confusion to shock. "What are you talking about? You're 18 now. We can help you with college, with whatever you need. You don't have to do this." I looked him in the eye and said, "Help me like you've helped me all these years?" "I don't think so." My voice was shaking, but I kept going. "You've made it pretty clear where I stand in this family, and I can't do it anymore. I'm done being the second choice." He didn't know what to say, he just stood there, speechless. My mom must have heard the commotion because she came into the room next, looking just as confused. I repeated myself. "I'm leaving." My mom tried to play the guilt card. You can't just leave us like this. We love you. We're your family. I laughed. It wasn't funny, but I couldn't help it. Family? You've treated Jenny like gold, and I've been treated like, I don't know, like I don't matter. I'm done. They both tried to convince me to stay, but I had already made up my mind. I wasn't going to let them talk me out of it. I grabbed my suitcases and walked out the front door, leaving behind everything I knew. I didn't have much of a plan, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going back. I got on a bus that morning and headed to a small town about 4 hours away. It wasn't fancy or anything, but it was far enough that I didn't have to worry about running into anyone I knew. I found a cheap apartment. Honestly, it was more like a shoebox with a bed, but it was mine, and that's all I cared about. It felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in my life, I was free. I didn't have to live in Jenny's shadow anymore. I didn't have to deal with the constant comparison, the favoritism, the feeling of being invisible. I was on my own now, and that scared me. But it also felt really good. I spent the next few weeks getting settled into my new life. I got a part-time job at a grocery store and tried to figure out what I wanted to do next. My parents kept calling and texting, but I ignored every message. I wasn't ready to talk to them. Honestly, I didn't even know if I wanted to talk to them ever again. Every day, I felt a little stronger. I was finally starting to figure out who I was away from my family, away from the shadow of Jenny. It wasn't easy, but I was proud of myself for taking that step. I didn't have a lot of money, but I had peace of mind, and that was worth more than anything they could have given me. Looking back, walking out that door was the best decision I ever made. It wasn't just about leaving my parents, it was about choosing myself for the first time in my life. I didn't know what the future held, but I was ready to face it on my own terms. After I left home, there was this eerie silence that followed. I guess I expected something dramatic, like my parents showing up at my new place or bombarding me with non-stop calls. But that didn't happen. I guess part of me was relieved that they didn't try to drag me back, but another part kind of wondered if they even really cared. The first few days after leaving were surreal. I had this tiny apartment, which was honestly just 4 walls with a bed and a leaky faucet, but it was mine. I remember sitting there in the quiet, thinking, what now? It wasn't like I had this grand plan. I just wanted to get away, but once you've left, what's next? I spent a lot of time thinking about that, especially in the early days when it was just me and the silence. I didn't have much money, but I managed to get a part-time job at a grocery store to keep myself afloat. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. It kept me busy too, which I needed. Too much free time meant too much thinking, and I wasn't ready to deal with all the emotions that came with leaving my family behind. For the first few months, I blocked out every attempt my parents made to contact me. They called, texted, even tried emailing, but I wasn't having any of it. I had blocked them on social media, changed my phone number, and even told the landlord not to give out my info if anyone came asking for me. I was serious about cutting ties. But the silence, yeah, that part was hard. I thought it would be freeing, and in a way, it was. I didn't have to deal with being compared to Jenny every second of the day, and I could finally breathe. But at the same time, there was this lingering emptiness. I didn't expect to miss them, but there it was, gnawing at me. Not enough to go back, but enough to make me wonder what the hell I was supposed to do now. I spent a lot of time alone during those months, thinking about everything. It was kind of like going over the past, trying to make sense of it all. I'd sit there, playing back old memories, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. Why was Jenny always the favorite? Why did I never seem to measure up, no matter what I did? One day, out of nowhere, I started seeing a therapist. I figured I might as well talk to someone, even if I wasn't ready to talk to my family. I wasn't looking for some big breakthrough or anything. I just needed to understand why everything still hurt so much, even after I'd gotten away. Therapy wasn't some magic fix, but it did help me see things a little more clearly. I started to realize that the problem wasn't just with Jenny or my parents. It was how they made me feel about myself. I had spent so many years believing that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't as important, that I had kind of internalized it. I mean, if your own family treats you like you don't matter, how are you supposed to believe anything else? The more I talked through it, the more I began to understand that their treatment of me wasn't a reflection of who I was. It was a reflection of them. They had their own issues, their own reasons for playing favorites, but that didn't mean I was less valuable because of it. It took a long time for me to wrap my head around that. I think it's something I'll always struggle with on some level. During that first year away, I didn't make any big moves. I kept my head down, worked my shifts, and stayed quiet. I had a few friends, but I wasn't exactly out living life to the fullest. Most of the time, I just kept to myself. I needed the space. I needed the time to process everything, even if that meant spending a lot of nights just staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd ever really feel normal again. Meanwhile, Jenny was living her life too. I hadn't spoken to her since I left, and to be honest, I didn't expect to. I figured she was off at college or something, probably still being the golden child in my parents' eyes. I didn't hate her anymore. I think I had stopped hating her the moment I walked out the door. It wasn't really her fault that our parents had put her on a pedestal. I think I had blamed her for so long that I didn't even realize how messed up the situation really was. She was just playing the role they gave her. There was this one night, maybe 6 or 7 months after I left, where I almost picked up the phone. My dad had sent this long email, something about how they missed me and how they just wanted to talk. For a second I thought about replying. I thought about giving them a chance to explain, maybe even patch things up. But then I remembered all the years of being second best, all the times they ignored me or brushed me off, and I just couldn't do it. Instead, I deleted the email. It wasn't the time for me to forgive or forget. I still wasn't sure if I even wanted to. What would they say that could make up for everything? What could they possibly offer me now after all those years of making me feel like I didn't matter? So, I kept the silence going. It was better that way. I wasn't ready to face them, and I didn't owe them anything, not yet. As the months went by, I started to feel a little more settled in my new life. I wasn't exactly happy, but I wasn't miserable either. I guess that's progress, right? I worked my shifts, made some new friends, and started to feel like I could breathe again. Slowly, I started to build something for myself, even if it was just small steps. It felt good to be in control of my own life for once, but every now and then, I'd think about them. My parents, Jenny, the life I left behind. I wondered what they were doing, if they had finally realized how much they had screwed up. I wondered if they missed me as much as they claimed, or if they were just trying to clear their conscience. It was hard to say. What I did know was that I wasn't ready to go back. Not yet. I had a lot of healing to do, and that was going to take time, maybe a lot of time. For now, the silence was exactly what I needed. So fast forward to almost 2 years after I left home. By that point, I had pretty much settled into my new life. It wasn't glamorous or anything. I was still living in that tiny apartment, working my grocery store job, and keeping to myself. I had made a few friends, but nothing too close. Mostly, I just kept my head down and focused on building something, anything, that felt like mine. Then, one day, out of the blue, and I know I said I wouldn't use that phrase, but seriously, this came from nowhere. I got a message from my dad on Facebook. I almost didn't open it. My first reaction was just to delete it and keep moving on with my life, but something made me stop. Maybe I was curious. Maybe I just wanted to see what he had to say. So, I clicked on it. It was a long message, one of those where you can tell someone put a lot of thought into it. My dad apologized, and I mean really apologized, for how they had treated me. He admitted that they played favorites with Jenny and how unfair it had been to me. He even said that he and my mom had been talking, and they realized how much they had messed up. He said they wanted a chance to start over, to try and rebuild our relationship. He asked if I would come over for dinner sometime so we could talk face to face. Now, here's the thing. For years, all I ever wanted was an apology. I spent so much time waiting for them to realize how much they hurt me, how invisible they made me feel. But when I finally got it, it didn't feel like this huge weight lifting off my shoulders. It didn't feel like the big moment I had imagined in my head. Honestly, it just felt weird. I sat there, staring at the screen, trying to figure out what I was supposed to feel. Should I be happy, relieved, angry? I wasn't sure. I just knew that it wasn't as simple as, oh, they apologized, so everything's fine now. Far from it. Part of me wanted to respond right away and tell them exactly how much they had hurt me, how it wasn't going to be that easy to make things right. But another part of me didn't even want to bother. I'd spent 2 years without them, building my own life, and I didn't know if I was ready to let them back in, even if they were sorry. I talked to my therapist about it during our next session. I laid it all out, the message, the apology, everything. She told me something that really stuck with me. She said, "You're not obligated to forgive them just because they apologized. You get to decide what happens next. It's about what you need, not about what they want." That hit me hard. I realized that I didn't have to rush into anything, and I didn't owe them forgiveness just because they asked for it. Still, it wasn't easy to figure out what to do. I spent the next few days going back and forth in my head. Should I reply? Should I ignore it? What would happen if I gave them another chance? Would things really be different, or would it be the same old story with them favoring Jenny and me getting the scraps? I tried to imagine what it would be like, sitting across from my parents at the dinner table after everything that had happened. What would we even talk about? Would they try to justify their actions, or would they just sweep it under the rug like they always did? I didn't know if I had it in me to go through all that. At the same time, I couldn't help but think about the chance to get some closure. Maybe I could finally get some answers, or at least say my piece. So after a lot of thinking, and probably overthinking, I decided to respond. I kept it short. I told my dad that I appreciated the apology, but if we were going to have any kind of relationship, I needed more than just a dinner invitation. I needed real answers. I needed to understand why they had treated me the way they did, and I wasn't willing to meet up unless they were ready to have that honest conversation. I hit send, and then I waited. I didn't know what to expect. Would they respond right away? Would they ignore me? I had no idea. But the next day, I got a reply from my dad. He said he understood, and that they were willing to be open about everything. He said they'd answer whatever questions I had, no matter how hard it might be. That's when I realized I was at a crossroads. This was my chance to confront them, to finally hear the truth about why things had been the way they were, but I still wasn't sure if I was ready for it. There was a part of me that was scared to hear their answers, scared that it wouldn't give me the closure I thought I needed. What if they said something that made it worse? What if the truth was even uglier than I had imagined? I kept going back and forth in my head. Was this really the right time to have that conversation? Was I strong enough to face them after everything that had happened? I had worked so hard to build my own life, and I didn't want to risk undoing all that progress just because I was curious about what they had to say. But at the same time, I knew that if I didn't confront this now, it would keep eating away at me. So, after a few more therapy sessions and a lot of soul-searching, I made a decision. I told my dad that I would come to dinner, but only if they were serious about answering my questions. No more excuses. No more pretending. I wanted the truth, and I wasn't going to settle for anything less. The day I sent that message, I felt this weird combination of relief and dread. I knew there was no turning back now. Whatever happened next, I was going to have to face it head on. I wasn't sure what the outcome would be, but I knew that it was something I had to do for myself, not for them. And so, I waited. For the first time in years, I was about to face my parents again. I didn't know what was going to happen, but one thing was clear: this was going to be a turning point, one way or another. So after all that thinking, I finally agreed to meet my parents. We set a date for dinner, and I was dreading it. Like the kind of dread that sits in the pit of your stomach and just gnaws at you. I kept going over different scenarios in my head, what they'd say, how I'd react, whether I'd lose my cool or stay calm. I wasn't sure what was going to happen, but I knew I had to do it for me, not for them. The day came, and I almost bailed. I had my phone in my hand, thumb hovering over the cancel button, but something stopped me. Maybe it was that little voice in the back of my head that kept reminding me why I needed this. So, I didn't cancel. I got in my car, drove to their house, and parked outside for a good 10 minutes, just sitting there, trying to breathe. It felt weird being there again. The place hadn't changed at all. Same porch, same front yard, even the same old rocking chair my dad used to sit in. I sat there thinking, what the hell am I doing? But I knew if I didn't go in now, I never would. So, I forced myself out of the car, walked up to the front door, and rang the bell. My heart was pounding, and I could feel the anxiety bubbling up. The door opened, and there they were. My parents, looking older than I remembered. My mom smiled, kind of a nervous smile, and my dad stepped aside to let me in. Walking into that house was like stepping into a time warp. Everything looked exactly the same. The family photos were still on the wall, most of them of Jenny, of course. It was like I'd never left, and for a second, that really messed with me. It made me realize just how much I had changed, even if they hadn't. We sat down at the dining table, the same one where I'd spent so many dinners feeling invisible. My mom had made spaghetti, my favorite when I was a kid, but the smell just made me feel uneasy. It was like they were trying too hard to make it seem normal, like I was just coming over for a casual family dinner. But we all knew that wasn't the case. I didn't say much at first. My dad started with some small talk, asking how I'd been, how work was, that kind of thing. But I wasn't there for that. I didn't want to pretend like everything was fine, so after a few minutes I just came out with it. Look, I didn't come here to chit-chat. I came because I need answers. The room got quiet real quick. My dad looked at me, kind of surprised, but he nodded. "We owe you that," he said. "You're right. I didn't waste any time. I just asked the question that had been burning in my mind for years. Why? Why did you always treat me like I didn't matter? Why was Jenny always the favorite?" My mom's face fell, and she started to tear up. She looked at my dad like she didn't know where to begin. My dad cleared his throat and started talking. He said that when they had us, me and Jenny, they weren't prepared for twins. They only wanted one kid, and when they found out there were two of us, they panicked. He admitted that they just didn't know how to handle it, so they focused on the one that seemed easier, Jenny. I sat there, stunned. Easier? You treated me like I was some kind of problem because I wasn't as outgoing or pretty as Jenny? My dad sighed. It wasn't like that. Well, maybe it was. We didn't mean for it to be that way. But over time, we just fell into this pattern of giving Jenny more attention. She was always in the spotlight, and we didn't realize how much we were neglecting you. I didn't know what to say. I mean, I had figured it was something like that, but hearing him say it out loud, it hurt in a way I wasn't ready for. My mom finally spoke up. She was crying at this point, her voice shaky. "We were wrong. We were so wrong, and we didn't see it until after you left. We thought you were fine. You were always so independent, and Jenny, well, she needed us more." I couldn't help but laugh, even though nothing about this was funny. Needed you more? You're telling me that I didn't need my own parents because I didn't ask for as much? Because I didn't need you to coddle me the way you did with her? My mom just cried harder, and my dad put his head in his hands. "We failed you," he said. "We see that now, and we're sorry. We're so sorry." I sat there feeling all the anger and hurt bubbling up inside me. I wanted to yell, to scream at them for everything they'd done. But at the same time, I was exhausted. I had spent so long carrying this weight, and I wasn't sure if yelling at them was going to make it any lighter. I took a deep breath. "It's not just about being sorry," I said. "It's about understanding how much damage you did. You spent my entire life making me feel like I wasn't good enough, like I didn't matter, and now you want to apologize after all these years?" They didn't say anything for a while. My mom just cried softly, and my dad looked like he didn't know how to fix it, because honestly, he couldn't. No amount of sorry was going to undo the years of feeling invisible. But I kept going. I didn't come here for an apology. I came because I needed to say this out loud. You hurt me. You made me feel like I was nothing compared to Jenny, and that's not something you can just take back. My dad nodded slowly. I understand. We don't expect you to forgive us right away. We just wanted the chance to tell you how sorry we are, and to see if there's any way we can try to make things right. I didn't know if there was a way to fix it. I told them that. I'm not ready to forgive you. I don't know if I ever will be, but I appreciate that you're finally acknowledging it. There wasn't much else to say after that. We sat there in awkward silence for a while, eating our spaghetti. It wasn't some grand emotional reconciliation, and I didn't walk away feeling like everything was fixed, far from it. But at least I had said my piece. At least they finally knew how much they had hurt me. After dinner, I got up to leave. My mom hugged me on the way out, and it felt stiff, like neither of us knew what to do. My dad patted my back and told me to reach out whenever I was ready. I nodded, but I didn't make any promises. As I drove away, I felt lighter, I guess. Not better, but lighter. It wasn't the closure I had imagined, but it was something. It was a start. Update 2. After that dinner, I didn't really know how to feel. I drove back to my apartment in this weird state of mind. It wasn't like a huge weight had been lifted or anything like that. It was more like I had taken the first step in a really long, uncomfortable journey. I didn't feel better, but I didn't feel worse either, just different. For the next few days, I kept replaying the conversation with my parents over and over in my head. I don't know why, but I kept trying to analyze every word, every reaction. My dad's apology, my mom crying, the way they both just sat there when I told them how hurt I was. I don't know what I was expecting, but I guess part of me thought it would feel more satisfying, like after years of being ignored and feeling like I didn't matter. This was supposed to be the moment where I finally got some closure. But that didn't happen. In fact, it almost felt anticlimactic. They apologized. I got to say what I needed to say, but it didn't really change anything. It wasn't like I suddenly felt healed or that our relationship magically fixed itself. If anything, it just confirmed what I already knew, that there was a lot of damage. And it wasn't going to be easy to undo. I kept thinking about what my therapist had said about how I didn't owe them forgiveness just because they said they were sorry. I tried to remind myself of that every time I felt guilty for not being ready to forgive them. They wanted to fix things, sure, but that didn't mean I had to be ready for that right now. I had spent so much time building a life without them, and I wasn't sure I wanted to let them back in, even if they were genuinely sorry. Jenny reached out a few days after the dinner. That was a whole other layer of awkwardness. She sent me this long text, saying she had heard about the dinner and that she hoped we could talk sometime. I didn't know how to respond to that. I mean, she was a part of the reason I left in the first place, even if she wasn't fully aware of it at the time. It was hard to separate the person she was from the way our parents had treated us. I didn't reply right away. Honestly, I wasn't sure if I wanted to. It felt like opening another can of worms when I hadn't even finished dealing with the first one. But a part of me knew that I'd have to face that too, sooner or later. For now, I'm just taking it day by day. I haven't made any big decisions yet. I haven't decided if I'm ready to let my parents fully back into my life, or if I even want to have a relationship with Jenny. Right now, I'm just trying to process everything, to figure out where I stand and what I need. It's weird. I thought getting the apology would feel like the end of something, but instead, it feels more like the beginning of something else, something that's going to take a lot of time to figure out. And that's okay. I've realized that there's no rush. Whatever happens next, it'll happen when I'm ready. For now, I'm just focusing on me.